Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I'm delighted to be joined by the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, who's speaking to us live from the Ecuadorian embassy, where he's been for the last 4 years after being granted political asylum. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Assange. When you were last on the programme, you talked to us about how you were about to publish some very damaging emails for Hillary Clinton. And you made it absolutely clear at that point that you were not happy about the prospect of her being in the White House. Now, you know, Donald Trump is now in the White House. Are you pleased with the impact you had on the presidential election?
I don't think that's the correct way to describe it. I seem to recall I would have said extremely interesting emails. And I don't think I made a position anyway in relation to Clinton. We certainly have suffered, like many journalists and sources under the government of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, which let us not forget, engage in an epidemic against journalists and sources, prosecuting 3 times as many, or criminally investigating 3 times as many journalists and sources as all previous presidencies combined. Now, it'll be very interesting to see whether that precedent is taken by Donald Trump and used in his administration. It might well be.
Well, at the moment, he's being very hostile to journalists. Do you think he will be a better president than
if he's hostile to their accuracy, if he's hostile to their accuracy as an organisation that has, in 10 years, never got it wrong in terms of authenticating a document. If he's hostile to the accuracy, we understand. Lots of very inaccurate journalists. I would say that the partisan nature of journalism in the United States and everywhere really is really coming to the fore. So he can complain about that, that's fine. It's a very different matter to use the FBI, use the CIA, use the NSA, as in our case, to go after journalists and their sources, attempt to bring prosecutions, spy on them, etc. All the infrastructure has been set up to do that. For years, I and Binney and Snowden have been saying that there has been a mass surveillance apparatus erected in the United States, which is a turnkey tyranny. All it will take is a president that's willing to turn that key.
But you're perceived to have helped Donald Trump and indeed perceived to have helped Vladimir Putin. How do you feel about those allegations?
Well, if we look at what the allegations actually are, what is it? It's that WikiLeaks published the true words, at least the authentic words, of Hillary Clinton and her campaign staff, and that the American people read what she said to Goldman Sachs, for example, in her private talks, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the way that she rigged the election in the primaries against Bernie Sanders, using her cronies in the DNC, such as Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and they reacted against it. So this is a matter for the American people, what they choose to like and choose to not like. It's a matter for Clinton and her campaign staff, what they chose to do and what they chose to say. If in the end the American people decided they preferred Mr. Trump to her, then that's their business.
Now, the American security services have alleged that you were fed this information by Russia. You've denied this, but you also are very clear that you don't investigate the provenance of material. You obviously check its authenticity. How can you be certain that the information didn't come from Russia? Or via Russia?
No, that's a bit of a misnomer. We use a variety of techniques. Sometimes in our investigation of our material, we end up understanding quite a lot about the provenance. Other times we don't need to understand that to authenticate it. Depends on how we get it, etc., etc. So there's a variety of
But are you
100%?
Are you 100% certain that this is not material obtained by Russia's security operation?
Well, as a source protection organisation that has a perfect record in protecting sources, our sources, well, you know, we don't want to play 20 questions with sources. We're not going to.
I'm not playing 20 questions. I just want to ask you on this specific.
Etc.
But I just want to ask you on this very specific and material point. I'm not going to play 20 questions.
Yeah.
If you give me a straight, it definitely didn't come from Russia, we can leave it there. But you're not saying it definitely didn't come via Russia, are you?
We have said just two things. One, we assure it is authentic, the variety of material we published across the election. We published quite a lot of different material from different places. All authentic, that has been borne out. The claims otherwise, pushed by Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, by Tim Kaine, Clinton's running mate, were false, have been proven to be false. No one alleges anymore that they're not completely authentic. They are. Secondly, that our sources are not members of a state. Not members of a government.
They may not. But you're not saying that your sources themselves weren't members of a state, though, are you? But let's move.
Well, we know the original source. We know the original sources. We know our sources. The original sources are, of course, Tony Podesta, Hillary Clinton, the DNC, etc.
I think there is still a bit of uncertainty about how it got to you and whether Russia was involved.
Well, if we look at the U.S. intelligence reports, I mean, you know, we can look at them and what U.S. intelligence has been saying. James Clapper, up until very recently, the head of the DNI, who oversees all the U.S. intelligence agencies, said, as to WikiLeaks, we don't know when they got their material, we don't know how they got it. It was repeated essentially by Barack Obama in his last press conference that he performed. As to WikiLeaks, we don't know. Were they witting, unwitting, etc. So there's just an admission that there's a complete lack of understanding in relation to us and to our sourcing. Now, what the Russians have been doing elsewhere, and the Chinese, etc., is very normal for them to hack a wide variety of institutions in intelligence gathering, and also the United States. The United States has done so for many years, including here in Europe, including in relation to elections.
Now, Mr.
That's
Assange,
normal.
Can I just
ask
normal.
You? Yeah. That's, you know, just because some institution gets hacked by some government, that doesn't mean that there's a pairing to what we publish.
Now, can I just ask, because lots of people have been asking me to press you on this, will you now be focusing your investigation efforts on the current president? In particular, lots of people have said, why don't they get hold of his tax? Why doesn't WikiLeaks get hold of the president's tax returns?
Well, why don't you get hold of the tax returns?
No.
I mean, we 3 times during the election we called for that. I think I might have. It wasn't on your TV show. Anyway, on TV and twice on social media we put out calls for Donald Trump's tax return, and twice after we've also put out calls. Of course, we're interested in that. Apart from one that looks like it might have come from his ex-wife. No journalists have been managed to get hold of those things. Okay, we're pretty good, but we're not infinitely good, and we don't have infinite capacities. You know, it's a matter of time, funding, developing sources, etc.
Now, on your welfare and future, you did say that were Chelsea Manning to be released, you would release yourself from this self-imposed incarceration and take whatever comes in terms of possible extradition to the US.
It's not a self-imposed incarceration. That's false.
Well, what will you now do that the previous President Obama has commuted Chelsea Manning's sentence? Will you be leaving the Ecuadorian embassy?
Well, it's an enormous victory. Let's look at the victories that WikiLeaks has secured in relation to sourcing. Who are the 2 most best-known sources in the world? They are Chelsea Manning and they're Edward Snowden. We nearly totally secured Edward Snowden's asylum. It's very interesting to see the asylum debate in the United States because I've come to know quite a lot about asylum law. And for Chelsea Manning, quite a wide range of different groups from Amnesty and ACLU, his lawyers, but also us campaigning for many, many years. And me in September and a week before the asylum, before his clemency, doing everything possible to make sure that he would receive, that she would receive that clemency. Okay, so this is a matter of chess.
Exactly.
This is a matter
Sure.
of chess. There were opponents to that clemency within the Democratic Party.
Sure.
Why were they opposed? They were opposed because he's famously an alleged source of mine.
Sure.
Famously, and the US government is trying to get up a prosecution about us two conspiring
So can
together.
I just check, because we are
to
almost
give
out of
Manning
time, because people really care about
Yeah,
this, and they care about what happens to you. Are you saying that you're not yet ready to take the risk of leaving the embassy?
We have approached the DOJ. We approached the DOJ before the election, saying, are they going to drop this case? We say it's unconstitutional, that it is unlawful, that it should not be pursued. What are they going to do? So
you're going to wait and hear from them, are you, before you make up your mind?
We haven't heard back from DOJ yet. The ball is in their court. If to settle the matter requires going to the United States under certain circumstances where my rights are protected, that's something we want to discuss.
Okay.
But the ball is in the DOJ court.
Julian Assange, thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely fascinating.